Welcome back to the mess that is the Eternum campaign. On this session, we're going to be taking a look at around 20-year period where the Arx Holdings United is going through a massive colonization effort. Now that the playing tall, so to speak, with regards to the administrative cap has proven to be suboptimal. It is still good, but simply suboptimal. We are going for a big colonization effort now, not a complete colonization effort, because after some point, the administrative cap penalties simply become too great, especially as a megacorp. And for those who don't know, the megacorps receive a 50% higher penalty for exceeding administrative cap. However, they get plus 20 to their capacity, which is really good trade if you can play around it, and it forces you to play around it. So, what are the things we're going to be doing this time, which are developing those colonies, resettling the citizens onto those colonies to exceed that 10 population. While that is going on, we are building up our branch offices, which are quite important because while they do cost administratively as much as a system, they can produce over 50 energy credits per month. This is not including the other buildings that you can add onto them, which will produce different resources, such as research, such as alloys, and even Unity, which, normally requires temples or the monuments, which is you can only build once on the planet. So that makes things quite interesting, and from here I'm trying to track my progress to see if there's anything that can be improved just learning from the enemy. While that is going on, the economic reforms are underway, because as you expand, as the Arx Holdings United expands, we deal with unique problems, which is, running out of minerals. As you can see, our mineral gain is just very, very low to build anything more, and so we require mining planets. After the colonization is complete, now comes the specialization of that planet, hence why you should not be colonizing a huge amount of planets, like say 5 planets at the same time, because you still need to feed those planets until those planets can have their proper contribution onto your empire. And in this case, what we're doing is we are finishing up our projects, we are finishing up the construction projects, immigration projects. After that, we are naming the planets based on their specialization. A metallum is the Roman term as far as I have googled for a mine, so those are the mining planets. Energons are my classic energy planets. Manufactorums are manufacturing planets which create alloys and consumer goods. Librariums are research planets. The Eden is the residential planets, which, it's kind of, I haven't decided yet sort of thing, but later on I have decided to make them research planets for, obvious reasons. Because as tall, your greatest advantage is your, research and traditions. And so what you do is you build on top of that, try to survive to the late game, where you will be, surpassing everybody, hopefully, in those aspects. With that being said, galaxy-wise, the things are getting very complicated. The northeastern sector has always been the most turbulent and most dangerous sector of them all. And honestly, there isn't even a good reason for it. We have tried forming a huge alliance to calm the tensions, but all it did was, rile the tensions. As such, there was a lot of problems, and as you've seen from the introduction, the fall of kingdoms has arrived. In between these sessions, in between these events that we have over here, we started getting the galactic events. A hacker had released the documents that the Katsu commonality was a part of the Northern Alliance. They were one of the 3 or 4? Yeah, 4, anonymous members. These anonymous members were quite important in deterring the enemy from, making any moves. However, it also drew a lot of attention from the other empires diplomatically. You know, the allegations that, oh, this is just a giant block of, you know, trade and resource gathering, which is, in a lot of ways, it was. In fact, we have found out that, at least in multiplayer games, and in Stellaris in general, the market has a way of stabilizing itself. You are unable to manipulate the market through your sheer scale of trading. We tried to have 5 players sell specific items such as alloys and minerals at the same time to crash the price. However, the price always seemed to get stuck and then rise back up, even though nobody should be influencing it. So our conclusion is that there has to be a mechanic that prevents such market manipulation from happening, which is a great idea, at least for developers. And so this threw our plans to manipulate the markets to our advantage kind of out the window. However, there were a lot of things we could have done together. During this time, the Katsu commonality has been known to be xenophobic. As such, their empire was outraged at the prospect that they were part of an alliance, a xeno alliance of all things, and as well as a few other things such as their worker rights not being respected and the way they have responded to some of these allegations and other allegations that I'm not too familiar with. And this has spiked a rebellion. This rebellion in time turned into a civil war with the rebels receiving the northern part of the Katsu commonality. Or was it empire? Yeah, they were commonality. And from there, the civil war had begun with the support of 6 empires being financially supported and being given star fortresses, which are the installations that currently very few empires have the fleet to face. As such, the Northern Alliance had to stay out of that war because on its own it just could not have been won. As a result, the rebellion was successful and the Katsu commonality had switched to communism. Yes, they became full-on space communists. And they, remedied the workers' rights. However, the war had ravaged their economy. They had reformed their government. While that was going on, the Holy Republic had done something very unexpected, which is they had thrown out their previous neutrality treaty, which had marked cornerstones of diplomacy a few decades ago. So Holy Republic during this time had been building their military to attack the Katsu monarchy with their own forces, which directly violated that treaty. The galaxy was at first kind of mildly grumbling about it, but then they were outraged, especially when they started building fortifications and claiming the lands of Arx Holdings United. As you can see from the map, the Holy Republic has always had a wedge between our lands and the place where we have our raw resource worlds and the rest of the nation. Those two systems were causing a lot of pain because they also blocked the trade routes. So it was indeed in our interest to go to war over those systems, but we just did not have the means to do so. Because 1, there was the neutrality treaty, and 2, the fleets are expensive. I'm investing heavily in my infrastructure, and as you can see, I'm investing my entire economy into building up those colonies, as well as transforming the economy from an intermediary good economy into rare resource economy. As you might have seen from the aspects video, there are 3 tiers of resources: the raw, and the intermediary, and the final rare resources. The rare resources are required to build a higher tier buildings and are in general more expensive to make and a lot harder to make. As such, their value quite increases, and as the game goes on, you require more and more of those facilities. And as you build those, well, if you do not reform your entire economy around it, you begin to fall behind. And the only way for you to efficiently go about it is to constantly reform it. It's like a sliding block puzzle. Just to get to another level, you need to create a ladder, which requires you to increase the blocks on the rest of your puzzle. It's as such, it becomes a lot like a pyramid. Which does, if I had to chart this economy, it would look quite a bit like pyramid, with at the bottom you have your raw resources. And just because you're making a lot of minerals and energy at the start doesn't mean that's going to continue. Oh no. Now the interesting thing, towards the mid and later, as you're reforming your economy, you find yourself strapped for minerals, because without expanding your borders, it's very difficult to get your minerals, unless you start building mining worlds. Now, mining worlds become the cornerstone of your mineral production. As such, well, more colonization is required even if you are tall. Now let's talk more about that war. So the Katsu War had ravaged the northeastern sector for these few decades, and it was very stressful to have a war with so much on your borders, and especially with so many people supporting them. However, as the time went on after the war, a new government had taken over the Katsus. They had annulled their membership and had decided to get closer more with Holy Republic, especially after they had helped them somewhat substantially in the war. I wasn't really paying attention. I was pretty busy reforming the economy, which I say that quite often. Reforming the economy is quite a daunting task. It's a constant effort of balancing, as well as, dealing with the unemployment. Because as you build more and more refineries, the refineries, well, they do not require many employees, but they're still specialists. And unless you have got more population to enable more buildings, you will have unemployed specialists, which is the problem that I was going through. But its pinnacle is reached on the rest of it. However, with that in mind, we have reached the end, and we will see you next time.